Well, this is an interesting exercise, I think. I
It
mean, it's
is.
kind of funny to think that we're going to have a conversation that we're going to post publicly, but hopefully something interesting comes of it. I think also as like a record for where we are now. For let's revisit this in a year's time and see where we end up.
See if we give the same answers.
Yeah, well, it could be interesting. And actually, quite honestly, at first when Angel suggested that I interview you or we have a conversation, I was like, ah, but I thought it's actually a conversation we often don't have or don't certainly don't have because we're always talking about the day-to-day running of the company or making specific decisions. But I suppose we'll kick off. I know obviously our history of starting TBST. You were running a different company at the time when TBST started,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
you essentially sold that company.
I did eventually, but not at first. It really started out as an opportunistic attempt to take advantage of what was at the time a growing industry, I guess you could
Yeah,
say. And I was running an IT company at the time, and clients would always ask us, do you do website? Everything technology was kind of lumped into the
yeah,
same thing, and we dabbled in that from time to time. But an opportunity came along to do some more work in that space, and that's how you and I came to be
yeah.
introduced to each other.
I mean,
And
so
yeah,
I'll just jump in because I always tell people this. I thought it was so clever of me when I was like out there looking for websites. I was like, I bet you everyone goes to an IT company for websites, and of course they did. And
yeah,
we did a lot of work, and when we did an unbelievable amount in the beginning, actually, kind of unexpectedly.
yeah, that's
So
right. And so then what happened for those not in the know is that we kept seeing the opportunity for doing that, but it was interfering with our work in the IT space, and so
yeah,
we decided to kind of spin it off to a separate company, and that's where you and I come in. And ultimately, what's happened is that I decided that this had a lot more long-term prospect for me, even though I had been in IT for
yeah,
20 plus something years at that point, and this was more interesting to me. I could
yeah.
see a lot more future about being able to innovate and really sort of change something about the space. And so hence it began. And people often ask also, what does TBST stand for? And TBST originally was called the Business Success Team.
Yeah.
And the idea was, even in IT as well, we could see really the opportunity to make a positive impact for businesses through the use of digital technology, the internet. And
Yeah.
so hence the business success team. And we've rebranded to TBST Digital at some years later,
Mm.
but the TBST remained. And so hence
Well,
we're
it's just
still
kind of
about
people
the yeah.
people started calling it TBST. I think it was
That's
one of
right.
our
Yeah, yeah.
early relationships. Was it Anthony Hamilton that
Yeah, I think it was,
he abbreviated it and it
it was a
stuck.
long name, and so
Yeah.
it's the abbreviation came naturally.
Yeah. Ben at the T the
Yeah,
business
that's
success.
right. Yeah, that's
Too
right.
many
That's right.
S's and T's.
Yes, and also surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, people do have difficulty spelling the word
Yeah,
success.
success.
And so we end up at some point we registered the domain name with three S's as well,
Yes,
just to
that's
capture
right.
the some of the errant spelling of the name. Yeah,
Things we had to
and I mean
do.
the rest is, as they say, history, right? And now we're 12 plus years in this
Yeah.
in this space.
I've always been curious. There's always a little bit of a whinge from technical people about non-technical people. People like, oh, they just don't get it. And I think that's the role of the company to try and, do that because if people don't understand, that's a good thing, right? We should be there. But IT is notorious for that sort of relationship. Whole sitcoms are made of the two different worlds where you have IT people in a basement who are culturally so different to the rest of the company. Do you think that web developers suffer the same cultural hurdles as
I do.
IT guys?
I
Yeah,
do. I think that's a natural thing that happens with technology. Of course, technology is all around us now, and
yeah,
so people are kind of forced to have to deal with it. That's right.
mm,
but still technology is very foreign to a lot of people. I mean, if we just think about the vast range of industries and businesses that we've dealt with, even back as far as 30 something years in business, and everything from manufacturing to finance to whatever,
Mm.
there's a whole range of different skills, and people are very, very good at what they do, but you can't be good at everything.
No.
And I think a lot of people do still find technology a challenging space because a lot of different concepts that exist that you have to come to terms with. And
Yeah.
often because of the range of complexities, there is a tendency, I guess, to simplify stuff or to
Create a
kind of
metaphor for it so that
yeah,
people can
or
understand.
that's right. And to try to, you know, not explain in depth or not talk about it in depth, but like rather find an easy way to,
Yeah.
and so you kind of tend to generalize a lot or speak in very broad terms, and that can be a problem
Yeah.
because the application of technology is so specific to the various
Yeah.
different industries or needs, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's something that I've found a lot of success with in my businesses and career is basically doing that translation work,
Yeah.
right? So, communication is really, I think, one of the most important factors in being able to do a technology business well,
Yeah.
because you really
Actually,
have to relate that, that.
totally. I think so many times we've had a like a recruiting conversation about a developer or even a team development kind of conversation, and what it boils down to. I mean, yes, we want the skills, but at a certain point, the ability to communicate or even the ability to be sensitive and empathetic towards sort of your
Yeah,
stakeholder,
absolutely.
like whether it's the project manager or the client or us, makes all the difference in almost a successful outcome or not. It's kind of interesting. And I wonder if customers and clients like explicitly feel that way. I know they do at some point in the project, once in a while that comes up, but is that something that,
Yeah.
people should look for more, do you think?
Yeah, I
Or do
mean,
you think that people don't look for it enough?
look, I think maybe I would say people don't realize explicitly how much of a role it plays
Yeah.
in the success of a relationship and in the success of
Mm.
a project, for example. Often, I think people look, especially in the technology space, at the skills.
Yeah.
You want somebody to have a certain set of skills, but the art of it, at least in my opinion, is in being able to extract from the customer the needs, their particular situation, what
Mm.
will work for them, what are the options they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with, the
Yes.
whole range of things. So you can develop from all of these various input points the best solution for them and in a
Yeah.
way that they can relate to and that makes sense to them. And that's really the key importance there is you just have to make sense to them. And some people I think gloss over that by
Yeah.
saying, oh, we don't, okay, let's not worry about explaining the detail or just kind of dumb it down in a way. And I think that
Yeah.
does the customer and you, the business, the supplier as well, a disservice, right?
I agree.
In the long term. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of dumbing something down is, I mean, I get it. You want to make the idea more accessible to a customer or a client or a partner or anyone like that. But actually, again, I know this is a conversation you and I have a lot, is how do we make it more relevant? Because you want to pick the parts that are relevant to the customer, then they'll be engaged and they'll actually be able to understand very complicated problems and
Yeah.
concepts because it's in their interest to do so. I mean, look, I never cared about finances until I started running a business, and you were always like,
Sure.
Ben, you're going to need to know this one day. Then it became important. And now, I've got a long way to go, but I think
I think
that's a really,
it ought to be relatable,
yep,
right? So they can relate to it. So sometimes you might need to
yeah,
use an analogy or something like that. You've got to explain in terms that they're comfortable with. But the term dumbing down, I think it kind of says it all. You
yeah,
you don't want to do that because
yes,
these are still smart business people,
yeah,
and so you want to be talking to them. They understand some very high level stuff
yeah,
that you might not
yeah,
understand, but this is the space that you're comfortable with, and they might not be. So it's it's not analogous to explaining it to a child, right?
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
explaining it to another professional that understands things in a different way or understands a different field, and getting them to relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're in the business of solving problems, and they're technical in nature, but every problem, at least in the context with how we work, is a business problem. And so one of the things that you're really good at is when understanding a problem, you kind of go for the root cause. And I think that's why the technical solutions are right. And I feel like that's probably how you got success in your IT field, is that, I mean, because I know your customers really found it hard to let go of you as a contact. And I think that's because that you didn't dumb it down. You made it relevant to them. And I think that's carried across into TBST.
Yeah, we definitely, I think that's definitely still one of the key values that we hold,
Yeah.
is that we want to make sure that we're providing a relevant service, and we want to be real with those
Yeah.
customers, not just trying to sell them something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We want a good outcome. It's about outcomes, and
Yeah.
so we want to provide that outcome. We want to think beyond the simple necessarily. We want to think about all the various possibilities and
Yes.
how a technology can really unlock something for them. So we like to say, we like to think bigger and
Yeah.
be real.
Yeah.
These are key values that we consider important, I guess. That's so that the outcome
Yeah.
is the best that it can be.
Yeah. I, I was thinking about one of our new jobs, so I won't say the name of it just yet, maybe in a future episode. But did you ever expect us to go from, I mean, we started out building very small WordPress websites for a very small amount of
Sure.
money, you know, whole websites for what, like two, three, $4,000, designed, developed, images, free hosting for a year,
Yeah.
all sorts of things like that. How would you describe the journey, or what would be the key milestones that we went from your point of view, from doing small websites, small business websites for your local mechanic, to
Mm.
100, $200,000 applications that transform businesses? I mean, we've just finished a big project that had a significant impact on the workflow of an organization in managing and enabling them to scale. We're about to start a new project that's, you know, going to disrupt the industry. I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
like that's a big journey, and I think a lot of people, regardless of what industry they be in, that's the thing that's always most interesting, is how do you go from doing the small things to doing the bigger and better jobs? Because
Sure.
it's the same journey, almost. It's the same ratio from the $100,000 jobs to the $1 million jobs, I guess, in a sense. I mean, obviously we haven't gone that down to that road, but it's an interesting. Well, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has. There's a number of factors to it. One of them is, for me, and I'm going to say for you and me,
Yeah,
it's a natural progression because we're interested in the deeper thinking, right?
yeah,
And so it makes sense that eventually we progress into bigger things that require
yeah,
more, and we can provide more value to. But I will say that we still do basic websites to this day.
yeah. Sure. Yeah,
And but we've learned a lot about how to do them, right?
yeah,
And the thing is that when we started out, I think firstly the industry at the time was still not very mature, right?
yeah.
So websites were still one of those things that people
They
were
weren't
really
even
trying to,
responsive.
well, no, and people were trying to get their heads around, like, do
Yeah.
we still need it? And then it went like it has also progressed over that time from
Mm,
something I need to have because everyone else has got it, and so I must have it too,
yeah,
to something that is now a critical business tool, right?
yeah.
You really need to put effort and thought into it. It's now key to a lot of different aspects of business, sales and
Mm.
marketing, and reputation, and a whole range of things, right? And sometimes the delivery of
Yeah,
service,
operations and
right?
things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. And so that is, I think, one of the natural progressions for us, is that we went from the marketing slash business type of requirement that most businesses had in the original days to the more complex possibilities, both because technology has
yep,
changed a lot, right, has developed very rapidly in that space. And then secondly, this is something that we find very interesting work, and we feel we
yeah,
can provide a very significant contribution and value to the customer in this way, right?
Yeah.
And so where we see the opportunity, we of course want to contribute there. Um, as well, I would say that, and I'll speak for me here, but there's certainly an aspect of both of us in this, is, I'm an engineer by background. So
Yeah.
for me, the complex work is always held an interest,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. For
find
sure.
naturally gravitating towards that. And, and maybe the last point I would say is that we're also very, I don't want to say visionary, that's maybe not the right word for it, but we do see opportunities in things. So what happens is when somebody asks us for a solution, we often see a bigger opportunity
Yeah. Yeah.
than
Yeah.
what they originally intended. And so then, projects can grow into a much
Yeah.
larger,
I mean that can be that's like a blessing and a curse at the same time
in a
because
way.
we always want to do like the big crazy thing or the more interesting thing when that's not necessarily well sometimes it's like people have a great vision and they don't have the ability to articulate it correctly to a customer. I mean, it's hard when you're excited about something and but you should do this and you connect this thing to that and you can automate this workflow. But I think it comes back down to what you were saying before. You have to make it relevant to the people that you're working for. And if I would interject a bit of insight here, is that I think that 90% of the time, the relevant part is actually missed entirely. Because I think to technical people, at least for me, I feel like it's obvious to us because that's what we live and breathe. That's how our brain works. That's how our careers have sent what our careers have centered around. But it's not always obvious to other people. So that's a really difficult thing to explain is something obvious to you that's obvious to other people. So okay, well, why don't we finish up because no one's going to watch a half an hour video of you and I rabbiting away. But maybe I think there's two kinds of people that might watch this. One would be someone who's interested in starting their own agency or their own development company. I mean, that's the digital nomad has certainly given a rise for people, and there's a lot of skilled people out there. What would you give? Would you give them any advice? As you've run a couple of businesses now, and we're doing all right.
I guess my first statement would be don't do it, Uh, no, I think obviously
It's like kids,
uh,
isn't it? Don't
jokes
do it.
aside, yeah, that's right. But it can be absolutely the most rewarding thing you do. And I think that the first thing I would say as kind of you know cliche as it is, it's got to be a labor of love. If you
Yeah,
don't like doing it, you're going to struggle with all the extra
all
um,
the shit.
effort, yeah, you could say.
Yeah,
There's a lot that goes with running a business, right? But of course, it also depends on the size, and so I think it's absolutely viable to run a small business.
mm,
You don't
yeah,
always have to aspire to be a very
yeah,
large business with lots of different people,
yes,
and there's different challenges at different stages of business. So, I mean, my first piece of advice, I guess I would say, is definitely love what you do and don't lose that love for it. It's very easy to do that
yeah,
when you get caught up in the nitty-gritty, in the
yeah,
day-to-day stuff of business. And I think the second thing I would do is or say is that you really ought to stand behind what you do.
yeah,
You've got to believe in yourself and in the work that you do and in the value you bring to your customers. And and you just have to believe in that. And you have to act
yeah,
accordingly, act with the customers. Don't compromise your values, I guess would be probably the summary of that. Stick
yeah,
with the values that you believe in and stand for those and conduct your business accordingly. And I think then,
yeah.
you so have the integrity, I guess you could say,
Yeah, okay.
of your beliefs.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think that's. I like that answer because it rings true with how like how you operate. I think that's definitely.
Obviously it does.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I can speak from experience that when I come to you with a decision or we're making a decision together, that's certainly the side of things that you represent or you try to protect that ideal for other people as well. Like the other guys in the team, if they're faced with a difficult decision, I think that you often will like the path to a good decision is often the one that everyone can stand behind and feel good about and support, because mistakes will be made, money will be lost. These are just the cost of doing business. It's just the process of it. So in the end, I think the success comes from being satisfied that you did the right thing by your view.
And there's
Yeah.
definitely a distinction, I think, to be made between doubling down on a mistake or being
Yes.
dogged in your determination to, bullheaded, you might say, or something
Yes.
like that. That's different to being a person of your conviction and of your values, right?
Yep.
Stand for what you believe in. But
Yes.
of course, you're working with people, and so you want to
Yeah. Yeah.
have a collaborative environment. But just don't compromise, I think is what I'm saying. Don't compromise for the sake of money or for the sake of appeasing somebody, because at the end of the day, for as an example of that, know your worth. Know the
Yeah.
value that you're providing, and stick with that. Do not to the bottom of a price negotiation or
That's
war.
very
You know what I mean?
common in our
Yeah,
game as well. And I
it
don't
is
think just web
absolutely is. Yeah,
development game. I think the creative industry at large, the marketing industry at large is often, not very good at that. And I think one of the examples of that is every time I bring up scoping fees, I get three responses. One, the preferable one. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's go. Two, that's why I like working with you technical people. You never do anything for free, and it's like, well, come on. Otherwise, we're just guessing here. Let's explore and understand the problem before we prescribe pricing. Or three, the worst kind of answer is like, well, I don't see the value in that. That doesn't make, why do I have to pay for that information? And I think that just sets up a very problematic relationship down the track. And that's okay. That's not to say that you say notice that straight away. Obviously, you have the conversation and you
it's
can
our
put it into
job
context.
to try to demonstrate the value of something to a customer, of course. And in a way, if they don't get it, then probably it's on us for not having
Yeah,
it made a clear case for something like that. But also, some people just don't see the value in something, and that's okay as well.
yeah,
But that's probably to my point that you don't want to, if that's what you believe is necessary to do the job right, then don't compromise at that point just to get the
yeah,
work. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
this
yeah,
is a very, very tricky thing, especially when someone's starting out in business,
yeah,
because there's a scarcity
yeah.
problem,
Complex.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
you want to put food on the table. So,
mm,
you're inclined to take more stuff. And I think that's okay as well. You
yeah.
sort of work through that,
They're
but keep,
hard-won lessons.
yeah, for sure. And look,
Yeah,
uh, I think as with children, and as in business, you often learn the lessons for yourself. You often have to learn the lesson for yourself. It's,
yeah,
as much as people can tell you certain things.
yeah. You
Um,
just have to experience it.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
But that's why I think keep the integrity of who you are and what you believe in. Do not give up easily and let people walk all over you. Or, do what you're good at.
mm,
Um, Demonstrate your value and be fair. Be fair
yeah,
and reasonable.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Nice positive objective for people. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, let's definitely do this again. I mean, it was actually a really interesting conversation from my point of view to hear your take on things. I mean, obviously I know you very well and I know, but it's just interesting. There are nuances to what you were saying that, I go, oh yeah, that's right, or that follows through. So I
Well,
think this will
hopefully
be
we've
definitely.
provided some value to some other people as well who decide to share this
Yeah.
private moment between us.
What? I wonder if this is a kind of video that becomes more interesting with time as it goes on. Like, as time goes on, there's now a permanent record on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever we post this thing that kind of talks to our state of mind where we're at. I mean, I know I'll find it fascinating to look at this in a year's time. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
wish
it'll
I
be a
had
cool one.
one from 10 years ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I That's like asking me to take a look at like videos from schoolies. That's a frightening concept and not one I'm willing to go down. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, mate, and I'll see you in the office tomorrow.
No worries.
Cheers. Bye.
See you. Bye.